What's up, guys? I'm walking through a very crowded place in Osaka right now, and I just decided to do a video. Maybe this is not the best idea with all of the people around, but I'll try. So I wanted to talk about an experiment that I did earlier this year, like in the fall, which I haven't talked about yet, and also talk about kind of my very final stretch here. I feel like this is maybe the third video I've made talking about my final stretch, because I guess this whole year in a way has been a final stretch, but anyway, it keeps getting shorter. I have 3 weeks left roughly, and I wanted to talk about kanji. Do you need them? Do you like them? Are they any good? And I want to preface this with the idea that I do think kanji are important. So before you jump on me on that, I do think it's important, and I think if you want to speak Japanese very well, you need to learn kanji. I think it would be very, very difficult to get away with even an intermediate level without knowing how to read kanji. Anyway, point being, this experiment that I mentioned earlier was in October, November-ish. For about 1 month, I decided to try and learn words without learning kanji. And the only reason I decided to do that was that I already knew 1,000 kanji, and towards the end of the year, I was looking for ways to learn more words more quickly, so that I could boost my conversational skills. So I wanted to try that experiment for quite a while and see what the long-term effects were before I talked about it here, so that I could report with some actual perspective on it. Here's what I got out of learning Japanese without kanji. First of all, you kind of can do it. Kind of. Like, you can get, maybe not most of the way, but almost most of the way there. I guess what I mean by that is that you can kind of memorize words by doing the same kind of production flashcards that I normally do, where like you look at a picture and you have to produce the word for that thing. Let me find the right street I'm going to. But what I did differently is, instead of having a reading comprehension card, I traded that for an audio-only comprehension card, which means that on the front side of the flashcard it just plays a sound of the word, and I have to know what it means. There's nothing else on that front side of the flashcard to give me any hints. And I actually really like those flashcards. I think they're really cool. Maybe not 100% necessary if you are doing the kanji flashcards as well, but they could be a nice... Oh my god, what a crazy place I am in right now. I think the place I need to go is over here after all. Anyway, audio-only flashcards, pretty cool, and they will get you kind of most of the way there. I did find some of the words were a little bit easier to forget. Like, I had a harder time remembering some words when I didn't know the kanji, and that's because the kanji adds actual meaning to the words. And that's why I think it's really important, especially over the long term, and especially if you do want to speak at a high level. But you can kind of get away without knowing them some of the time. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when I started this experiment, I already knew 1,000 kanji, which I don't know what percentage of words that supposedly covers, maybe 60 or 70%. But that's a lot. So that was really helpful, because a lot of the words that I learned were using characters that I knew anyway already. So it's not as if I started from scratch and tried to learn Japanese without characters. I think that you might be able to do that to a certain extent, but it's going to be really difficult. What was I going to say? So the Romanji, if you want to learn with Romaji or with Hiragana, for example, I think that can take you to a certain point, but it's going to be difficult once you get to an intermediate stage, even a high beginner stage. And Hiragana is really not useful beyond learning single words. I think reading a whole sentence of Hiragana is really difficult. It's a lot more difficult than reading kanji, actually, because there's no spaces between words and they become very long, like physically on the paper. It's not like an English word that has 5 letters, it's very small. 5 hiragana characters takes up half of a line on the computer or whatever. So anyway, I think there are problems with going the hiragana route, and as well as that, you have the problem of the meaning, which comes from kanji, and you miss out on that when you skip out on it. But all of that to say that the experiment kind of worked, and I'm going to do it again for the next 3 weeks. And the only reason I'm doing that is, again, because I'm on this self-imposed deadline and I want to get a lot of vocabulary in before the end of the year. That's the only reason I'm doing it. For my long-term Japanese development, it's not the healthiest thing to do. I think you should just be patient, be slow, learn the kanji for everything as it comes up. No, it's going to take a long time to learn everything you need to know, but I do think that is the most efficient way overall. But, you know, if you've got a trip coming up in a few weeks and trying to cram some more vocabulary, you can kind of get away with not learning to write some of those words. But it's not a perfect system. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that experience because I think that it's one of those like most asked questions about Japanese. I myself have searched, you know, countless times for different ways that you might be able to save time in learning Japanese, but when it comes down to it, like, if you really want to learn this language, you need the characters, and it just takes a lot of time. Like, sorry, like, that's how it is. Even if you have the most efficient methods, it does take a very long time, just due to the limitations of the brain itself and what it can remember. But in some cases, you can make some of these compromises and perhaps advance a little bit more quickly in the short term in exchange for not learning kanji for a little bit. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do for the next 3 weeks. The other thing I'm going to do is starting tomorrow, I'm going to be taking italki lessons again, even though I'm in Japan and I am getting to speak Japanese every day. I'm not like hanging out with Japanese people on a regular basis, sometimes, but not all the time, and I need to be speaking a lot more than just a few sentences every time I go to a restaurant. So that's the other thing that I'm going to be focusing on for the rest of the year. Other than that, once we do get to that point, to the end of the year, we're going to have a lot to talk about. I definitely want to go over the whole year with a fine-tooth comb, look at the data from Anki, and really, you know, dig up any kind of takeaway or information we can learn from this experience, and I'll definitely report on all of that in great detail in January or so. But that's it for now. For the time being, I'm hanging out in Japan, eating some good food, speaking some Japanese, and still studying. So that is it for now. I'm gonna get hit by a car if I don't stop this video, so I will see you guys later. All right.